Welcome back to DBL. Today is Juneteenth, which is a celebration honoring a day in 1865 when enslaved people in Texas finally found out they had been freed 2 years earlier. And today, for the first time in a decade, the House Judiciary Committee debated a bill that would start the conversation about reparations, that is financial restitution given to descendants of slaves. New Jersey Senator and 2020 presidential candidate Cory Booker testified in front of Congress. Watch.
And so we as a nation have not yet truly acknowledged and grappled with racism and white supremacy that has tainted this country's founding and continues to persist in those deep racial disparities and inequalities today. This is a very important hearing. It is historic. It is urgent.
Actor and political activist Danny Glover was also there.
Despite much progress over the centuries, this hearing is yet another important step in the long and heroic struggle of African Americans to secure reparations for the damages inflicted by enslavement and post-emancipation and racial exclusionary policies.
Yeah, amen. But not everyone is in favor of reparations. Here's what Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told reporters yesterday.
I don't think reparations for something that happened 150 years ago, for whom none of us currently living are responsible, is a good idea. We're always a work in progress in this country, but no one currently alive was responsible for that.
Wow, but they either benefited or they did not benefit from what happened 100 and something years ago, and still, you could say, in certain cases still today. But Erica, would reparations, do you think, help heal that large wound that the African American community feels?
You know, I have a hard time saying healing, because I think healing is a part of, it's an evolutionary process. It's a kind of, I recently heard this, is it complicated when you say, is it complicated or is it uncomfortable? I don't think it's very complicated. I think it's just a very uncomfortable conversation. Because even when I'm thinking about reparations, when you think about it, it was 40 acres and a mule in 1865, around the same time or months before Juneteenth. So that would have been in January. And then they were, slaves or former slaves were told that they would receive their 40 acres and a mule based on the land that they had tended to. So after that, it turned out that the owners, the white owners, were able to reclaim that land, and they didn't get that reparations. For me, it's hard to have that conversation without acknowledging what people in my family were able to do. My grandma Stella, who was born in 1900, owned a plot of land that she got from sharecropping, and worked very hard to do that. However, we have so many areas in this country that have been purposely put into destitute situations in order to keep the population in those communities down. Yeah. Would reparations help a community like that? Absolutely. Would reparations be appropriate for perhaps HBCUs? I believe they would be. So it's not a complicated situation. It's just uncomfortable to talk about.
How do you feel about this, Lindsay?
I feel like if you calculate the worth of free black labor during slavery, it's trillions of dollars. And so in order to be on an equal playing field as a black person in America, we need something. But handing like cash in hand, I don't know if that will be the solution, but I think there are several solutions we can look at, like Will Smith and Nas are creating an app that will teach financial literacy to teens. So what can we do to start implementing strategies to help our children understand how to move better in America and put them in better situations where they're competing on an equal level? I know with the Native Americans, they were given plots of lands that they can't really do much with. I know that there's a lot of alcoholism and deteriorating conditions in those areas with their reservations, and so I just don't want to see the same thing happen where it's given and then they think they're done with it and it really didn't help any.
Right. Yeah. You don't want them to think that they did their part and then wash their hands of it.
Right. It's an ongoing issue. As you said, it's uncomfortable. We have to keep talking about it, but we have to start somewhere and do something.
Right. Yeah. I think it's tricky, just like you said. I think if you do that, you do give the reparations, some people are going to be like, all right, that's it. I don't want to hear any more about this. It's over. Something. You know, and on the other hand, I think if you give some, it might not be enough. So it's a tricky situation. But I think, like Erica said, it's something we need to talk about.
Right.
Let's start talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we are here on this panel.